because this is called the Beyond the Veil Summit, I'm asking everybody as it comes up, in your experience, in your own words, how would you define what is the veil between the worlds?
The veil refers to the fact that when you come into body, you forget who you are and why you're here. So the veil is something energetic that erases memory. And the veil is actually a living consciousness. I have seen channelings of the consciousness of the veil. And the veil says something very interesting in these channelings. The veil says, and quite sadly, with some tone of lament, why do people condemn me? Why do people not appreciate what I'm doing for them? And it's a valid question, because even though we complain, those of us who know how it works, that we don't have full memory coming in, this actually makes learning on the physical plane much more effective than it otherwise would be. In other words, if you came in with full memory and you knew everything about your pre-birth plan, you would have no questions. And if you had no questions, you would then be deprived of the process of generating many questions, deciding which ones are important enough to pursue, which is in of itself a big learning experience, and then having the experience of pursuing the answers to the questions that you chose to pursue. All of that is a very, very rich learning opportunity, and you wouldn't go through any of it if you had no questions. So the veil is there for good reason, for loving reason. People lament the presence of the veil, but it's something that is actually serving us tremendously.
That also brings up another question. Some people are from a very young age are very psychic, and they know that they've got spirit guides or guardian angels or folks looking after them. And then other people come through as if they have complete, their senses are shut off. They have no sense of anybody watching over. Why do you suppose that is? Why are these two dichotomies in existence?
All of that is planned prior to birth. And the people who plan to have those kinds of abilities, they plan them for a very good reason, because they're going to use them primarily in service to others, perhaps in a large public role, or perhaps just in a much smaller role with their own family and friends. But not only is the development of those abilities planned before birth, the timing is also planned. So it's discussed, when do we want to bring these abilities online? What will provide the richest learning for you and for all the people who are going to be in your life.
Okay. Now, we talked a little while ago about everything being online. You do your sessions online, but you also offer your entire workshop online. It's called Awakening to Your Life Purpose, Discovering Your Life Plan. Now, that is entirely online. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in your workshop and how does it help people?
So in the workshop there, we do four things. I give a talk to open the workshop based upon my book. And I talk about why we plan our biggest challenges and share some stories of pre-birth planning. Then we do something, a very analytic exercise I call the Divine Virtues. What I saw in the research for Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift is that in the pre-birth planning sessions, a lot of times when souls were planning big challenges, they were talking about how they saw the challenge as providing both the motivation and the opportunity to cultivate certain virtues that are important to the soul. And I call those divine virtues. It's things like compassion, patience, empathy, forgiveness, unconditional love, faith, trust, and so on. There's about 28 on the list now. These are the 28 that have come up the most in my research. The exercise gives you a lot of insight into which, it's usually two or three you're working on. And once you know that, that is a really valuable thing to know, because then you can go about cultivating those virtues in a much more conscious manner, and you may not even need the challenges you planned before birth. And then we do 2 group hypnotic regressions, one to contact one or more deceased loved ones on the other side. And if the form the contact takes is verbal, you can ask them any questions you have about your life plan with them. And then as a group, we do a between lives soul regression. It goes through some preliminary steps to help you relax physically and mentally. Then I guide people into a past life. It's almost always a past life that had a big impact on the plan for the current lifetime. And then you go from the past life, a portion of your consciousness actually crosses back across the veil and goes home to the other side, where you can talk with the Council of Elders. And when the group gets to the council, I prompt them to ask a very long and extensive series of questions that covers all the major areas of everybody's life. So you should come out of that regression knowing what you planned, why you planned it, how you're doing in terms of fulfilling your plan, and how you can better fulfill your plan. That, in a nutshell, is what the workshop is all about. It's about helping you discover what you planned before you were born.
Okay. So if somebody just does past life regressions and doesn't do the between life regressions, what's the difference, I think, between those two as far as the information that comes forward and that you can actually use in this lifetime?
I used to offer standalone past life regressions. I stopped doing that because I really wanted to focus on the between lives, which is a much more powerful and comprehensive experience. But basically, a past life regression is particularly good at showing you and possibly healing an issue if it has a past life origin. So just to take a very simple example, let's say that somebody has an unexplained fear of heights. They do a past life regression. They go back to a past life where they lived in a castle and one day somebody pushed them off the top turret of the castle and they plummeted to their death. Well, that explains where the fear of heights comes from. And a process known as abreaction often occurs in past life and also in a between life soul regression. Abreaction means that by going back to the past life origin of a current life issue, there's often a partial and sometimes a complete healing of the issue in the current lifetime. Nobody understands how abreaction works, but it's a very well documented phenomenon. So in the example I gave, the person who goes back and sees that past life in the castle, they may very well experience partial or complete healing of the fear of heights in the current lifetime.
You mentioned your website at the beginning, but I want to make sure to mention it again. It's yoursoulsplan.com, and the word souls does not have an apostrophe in it. It's Your Soul's Plan, 3 words, no spaces.com. So I'm looking at the clock here. We're not quite out of time, but we're running low. So I want to make sure, is there anything that we've left out, any messages that you want to make sure that we share before we wrap this up?
Well, I think the message I would like people to take home, if they remember nothing else from what I said today, is that, you mentioned that my first book was originally titled Courageous Souls before a publisher acquired it and named it Your Soul's Plan. The reason I chose the title Courageous Souls, it's not actually a reference to the soul, it's a reference to the personality, the portion of the soul's energy placed into a physical body. And the reason I chose that title is because it takes a tremendous amount of courage to plan a life on Earth and even more courage to execute the life plan once you get here. And as I understand it, once you've had an incarnation on Earth, it becomes part of something that is called your energy signature, which is a combination of your unique color and your unique sound. So when this lifetime is over, as you travel around the universe doing whatever it is you choose to do, other beings will see in your energy signature that you are on Earth. And as I understand it, their reaction is something along the lines of, "You went to Earth? Oh." And they're tremendously impressed because they know how much courage it takes to come here. So I share this with you as a way of inviting you to be impressed with yourselves. Acknowledge the tremendous amount of courage it took for you to come to Earth and execute your life plan here. The fact that you are in a body on planet Earth automatically places you among the most courageous beings in the entire universe. So honor yourselves for having that courage. Respect yourselves and each other for having that courage.
Thanks for listening. Check out Castle Gate, a novel based on my own ancestral healing journey at lisabonis.com. In 1921, 4 men set off from Scotland to the United States. Will Garrock, his brother Pete, his son Willie, and his nephew Thomas, all coal miners. They left behind the miners' rows and the nationwide mining strike with its soup kitchens. Their destination was Castlegate, Utah, where they had kin to welcome them before sending for their wives and children. They prospered in America, working in one of the finest mines in Utah. Until that tragic day, March 8th, 1924. Disaster struck. 3 explosions, trapping 171 men inside. Rescue crews worked tirelessly for days, but sadly, they could not save a soul. Women were widowed and children were orphaned, and some never recovered from their broken hearts. Castlegate is the true and tragic saga of a Scottish family whose dreams of finding their fortunes in the bountiful coal mines of Castlegate, Utah during the Prohibition era explode in one of the most devastating mine disasters in American history. Learn more at lisabonese.com.